Hi, Algebra for the Trades. Sorry I didn't make this video for you yesterday like I was planning to. I just was busy with open house stuff. Okay, so this is how we turn APR, which is annual percentage rate, into APY, which is annual percentage yield. So remember, depending on how often your interest is compounded, that will determine how much you actually have to pay. So your APR is 6.2%. That's not the amount of interest that you pay or get paid unless it's only compounded once a year. If it's compounded more often than that, it's going to be higher than that. So again, usually if you're borrowing money, they'll tell you the APR because it's lower. If you're investing money, they'll tell you the APY because it's higher. All right, so the first thing we need to do for this formula is a little bit simpler than the ones we've been looking at because we're not dealing with an amount that's invested. That doesn't matter. We're only dealing with the interest rate and the number of times it's compounded. We also don't care about how long because we're figuring it out per year, annual. That should make sense. So the only thing that I need to do to start is to turn my 6.2% into a decimal. So as you know, percent means divide by 100. So if I take my 6.2 and divide it by 100, I get 0.062. When you're plugging stuff into your calculator, you don't need to put that first zero, but you can. It's also a good idea to write it down because if a number starts with zeros, you know that you're supposed to look for a decimal point. It makes it harder to miss. Okay, so if it's compounded monthly, that means that it's compounded 12 times. Actually, I don't want to write it that way. Sorry. If it's compounded monthly, that means n equals 12. If it's compounded weekly, that means n equals 52. If it's compounded daily, that means n equals 365. I know leap years, it can be 366, but we still do 365. And if it's compounded quarterly, that just means 4 times a year. And those are your main ways that it's compounded. Sometimes it's compounded continuously. That's a whole other formula, but that's pretty unusual. You're more likely to see a higher interest rate than for something to be compounded continuously. Okay, so for monthly, I'm going to do 1 plus 0.062 over 12 to the 12, and then I'm going to subtract 1. So let me put that into my calculator. I'm going to use a graphing calculator because then I'll be able to do the calculations really fast. It's not that fast for this one. So this is 0.638. Which means instead of paying 6.2% interest, we're paying 6.38% interest. And again, to change it back to a percent, I just multiply by 100. All right, so for weekly, it's going to be the same. 1 plus 0.062 over 52 to the 52 minus 1. And I'm just going to change my 12s to 52s, and I'm going to get 0.639. So that's going to be 6.39% if it's compounded every week. If it's compounded every day, I'm just going to change my 52s to a 365. All right, and that is 0. Oops, sorry, there's another 0 in here for both of these. Sorry about that. 0.06. It's 3956, so I'm going to make it 40. So that's about 6.4%. And then if it's quarterly, I'm just going to do 4. And I know it doesn't seem like it's a hugely big deal right now, but when oops, sorry. But when your interest rate is higher, when your interest rate is higher, it makes more of a difference. 635. So this is 6.35%. So as you can see, the more times it's compounded a year, the higher the APY gets, the more of a difference it makes. And again, for 6.2%, it's not a super huge deal. I think when the interest rate gets bigger, you see more of a difference, okay? But that's APY. It's super simple, by far the simplest formula we've worked with this year. Not that different from the compound interest formula we did. The compound interest formula did not have the -1 at the end, and we just multiplied by the principal at the beginning. And then we had a t for an exponent up at the top. So not super different, but definitely this is the easiest one. All right? Okay. I will see you in class. Thank you.